So methods can be defined in two ways. Okay. So you can either keep it here, right? You can either keep it, you can just declare that inside your class, declare and implement. This is the signature of the function. This is the implementation of the function, right? You can do both of them together inside the class. Else, what you can do? You can just say void, let's say, Lloyd, let me declare any random function f, and I'm gonna say just declare. Don't just implement the function or don't have its body yet. Just declare its signature. What is the return type? What is the name of the function? How many parameter it takes? Now you can implement that outside of the class as well. How that can be done? Utilizing the same thing. Let's do that and let's say what is the type of the function void and in which class it is right now. Bank account, scope resolution operator, and the function if it is, right? And then try implementing that. Just say cout inside function f. Inside function f. This is another way of implementing that. So since this is an instance method, not mean for the static data members, but mean for the object data points, whatever we are having, we can try calling the function obj.f. Let me try running whether the implementation is correct or not. Let me just see. So yeah, that's completely fine, right? You can declare the function inside the class. You can mark, you can say your compiler that a function f is there inside my function, but I will implement that outside of the class. How? Mention the return type, in which class it is present, scope resolution operator, and then type the name of the function and its number of parameters. Got the point, all of you, till this point? Tell me.
Yes.
This is another way of doing it, right? Okay, fine. This part we have seen. Let me try downloading it as well. Okay, so we have seen so far what kind of methods, static methods and non-static methods. Now tell me, what should happen? What should happen now? Tell me. Let's talk about some other kind of methods that we have, that is constructors, right? Constructors. What are constructors? Does anyone know about that? Anyone? So let me not go into this as of now. All the static data member points we have seen, static methods we have seen. Let's try creating a single object as of now. And I'm going to do what? We are going to take the examples of constructors. What are constructors? So constructors are basically those methods inside the class which are of the same name as that of the class. And they don't have any return type, not even void. No return type, right? No return type. When does a constructor gets called? Whenever you have declared the object. Whenever you say your compiler, I am creating an object, compiler will automatically invoke the call to a constructor. Basically, whenever you create an object, the compiler calls the constructor. That always happens. Okay. So let me try implementing a constructor right now. So I have made a constructor whose body is this. Okay. Let's say it does not have any parameter and its name is same as that of the class. And I'm going to say cout inside constructor, right? Inside constructor. Inside my constructor, correct? Okay, fine. Now try creating the object. I have just created the object obj. Okay, let's see what happens. Let me try creating and let's see whether the constructor actually got called on. So inside constructor, getting the point, all of you? Whenever you created the object, then with the creation of the object, the constructor got called, its body got executed, we were able to print inside constructor. Whenever you create an object, the constructor gets called. Is my point clear to all of you? Is my point clear to all of you till this point? Please tell. Now my point is, I was not including any constructor. Still, whenever I created object, the object got created and I was able to play with it, right? I was able to play with it. Let's say I created the object and object.account number. I will try printing. Let's see whether that happens or not. So it's coming out to be 0. That means object also got created and it has an account number in it as well. How did that happen? I have no constructor inside my class and I know that a constructor has to be called. Whenever you create an object, constructor will be called at any cost. How did that happen? Can anyone give me the answer? Anyone? When you don't include any constructor, I say any, you haven't included any constructor, then on its own, the compiler will include a default constructor inside the class. What do you mean by a default constructor? Default constructor means constructor will be having, this is a function only having the same name as that of the class, but with no parameters. Inside the particular method, it accepts no parameter. This is what we call as a default constructor. If you haven't included any constructor inside the class, compiler will by on its own include a default constructor, because without calling the constructor, object cannot be created. So constructor has to be there. If you haven't included anything, all good. Compiler will do it on its own. It's going to include a default constructor without any parameter, without any body. Correct? And once you try creating the object, your constructor call is going to get invoked, whatever your compiler has included. So what's a default constructor? Default constructor is a kind of constructor that has particularly no parameters in it. Correct? That has no parameters in it. Clear to all of you? First tell me on that part. Please tell. Please tell. Now my point is, let me do one thing. Let me have these data points, and inside a constructor, whenever I'm going to create the object with the help of a constructor, I am going to take two values, int account number and string name, right? These two things will be passed on inside the constructor as a parameter. And I'm going to say the object's data points, that is this account number, will be allocated the value, whatever I have passed inside the parameter, as well as I'm going to say this name, right? The object's data point name will be given the value, whatever I'm having inside the name. Inside the constructor, I'm going to initialize the values I wish to keep inside an object. That's what I am going to do, correct? Now my point is, suppose that without this constructor, this is what? This is a kind of constructor that is having parameters inside that. Default is one that does not have any parameters. And whatever constructor is having parameters, this is what you call as parameterized constructor. Parameterized constructor. Correct? It takes parameters and can be utilized to initialize the data points of an object. Correct? That's what we can do. So I say that, okay, let's not utilize the constructor I have declared inside the class. Without this constructor, suppose that, okay, fine. Let's see how can I utilize this constructor to create an object. I say that, let's create an object, and here I'm going to pass account number to be 1. Account number to be 1, and let's give the name to be Aniket. Aniket is the holder of this account, right? Now you try accessing the values object dot account number and object dot name, right? Who is the account holder? These two you try accessing, you're going to get the result accordingly. So 1 and Aniket, object is getting created with the required data. What has happened? Can anyone try explaining? What has happened? Tell me, what has happened by anyone? When you tried creating the object, the compiler invoked the constructor called. You are creating the object, by the way, so far. It has done what? Invoked the compiler. The compiler has invoked the function call. The function call has received account number to be 1, name to be Aniket, right? Whatever object you are creating, okay, utilizing the reference of this object. How can I access the reference? Utilizing the this keyword. I can say objects account number, whatever we are having, objects account number, assign that the value, whatever your account number parameter has received, that is 1. Then I say name, objects reference, utilizing the objects reference, its data point name, assign that the value Aniket, because Aniket has been received inside the parameter. This name is holding Aniket, this account number is holding value 1. correct? And once the entire object got created, the flow will be coming back here. And then once you try implementing, once you try printing, you're going to get the account number to be 1 and the account holder name to be Aniket. Is there any doubt so far how to utilize parameterized constructors? Please tell me. One of the tasks I can achieve utilizing constructors is initialize all the values. Initialize. You can update it later on with some other things, right? Initialization can be done with the help of constructors. Initialization means what? Whatever object you are creating, whatever are its data points, initialize them with some value, val1 and val2. Give them some initial values. Later on, I can utilize some getter and setter functions to update them or to fetch them. Because my constructor does not have any return type. It cannot return any value. Okay, it cannot return any value. Suppose I wish to, whatever initialized value are there, I wish to update them. Constructor cannot be called beyond the object creation. Constructors are only specifically can be called once you are trying to create an object. That's when your constructor gets called. So utilizing the constructor, I can initialize, but I can't update. So for that, I can have separate getter and setter methods. We can see that later on, right? Correct. Okay, let's move on. So this is how I created an object. Till this point, is there any doubt? Tell me, all of you. Koi doubt hai itna dur? Okay, fine. So right now, my point is, this is what I did. Now I wish to say that I will not be initializing an object. I'm going to create an object, but I'm going to not initialize that object with any value. Can I do it? What are your thoughts? You wish to create an object too, but you don't wish to initialize with the help of a constructor. Can I do it? Can't I do it? What are your thoughts? Can I do it? Can't. Okay, let's try. So my answer is no, you can't do it. So what is happening? No matching function call to bank account constructor, right? Why that has happened? Can anyone try giving the answer why this has happened? Anyone?
The parameters nahi bole.
Yes, parameters. Okay, so see, if suppose you are creating this object, then while creating this object, a constructor should be called. What kind of constructor should be called? Tell me that. Default, right? To create this object, basically you are not providing any parameters. Am I correct? So whenever your compiler is trying to actually go for the object creation, right? Whenever you're running the program, you are going for the object creation. What happens? Compiler is looking to match this with a default constructor, because while creating this object, you are giving no parameters. So to create this object, the compiler is going to look whether any default constructor is residing inside the class or not. So no default constructor the user has. That means I have written inside the class. Only a parameterized constructor is present. Now my point is, will the compiler on its own invoke or include any default constructor? That should happen. See, I have made a parameterized constructor inside the class. Should the compiler include any default constructor? Should that happen? No. If the user has not included any constructor, then compiler includes the default constructor. Else, it doesn't do that. Even if a single constructor is present by the user, the compiler will not include any default constructor. So whatever is the constructor user has included, that has to be mandatorily used for creating the object. Is my point clear here? If you have included a single parameterized constructor inside the class, this has to be mandatorily used while creating every object of the class. Because no default constructor user have included, neither is being included by the compiler. Tell me, is it clear till this point?
Yes, sir, but why? अपने default भी तो रख सकते हैं और ये भी तो रख सकते हैं क्योंकि
आते हैं उस point पे आते हैं, ठीक है? My first point is कब compiler default constructor कब include करता है? जब user कोई भी constructor class के अंदर ना रखे तब करता है, ठीक है ना? तब करता है. अगर आपने एक भी कंस्ट्रक्टर इंक्लूड कर दिया क्लास के अंदर, अब कंपाइलर का काम खत्म, वो कोई डिफॉल्ट कंस्ट्रक्टर इंक्लूड नहीं करने वाला। ठीक, इतना दूर सबको क्लियर है? पहले वो बोलिए, इतना दूर क्लियर है कि नहीं? बोलो हाँ या ना, कहाँ गए? ओके
আচ্ছা স্যার,
नाउ या बोलो।
স্যার বলছি ভাবুন একটা ভাবুন ব্যাংক অ্যাকাউন্ট ওবিজে 2 তে আমি পাস করছি আমাদের ভ্যালুটা, ঠিক আছে?
हाँ,
আর মানে ক্লাসের মধ্যে কোনো কনস্ট্রাক্টর ডিফাইন করা নেই, তখন সেই ক্ষেত্রেও কি এরর দেবে?
couldn't get you, please repeat।
তার মানে আমরা ব্যাংক অ্যাকাউন্ট ওবিজের মধ্যে ব্যালেন্স গুলো পাঠাচ্ছি, ঠিক আছে, ওয়ান আর আমার নেম। হ্যাঁ, এবার আমরা ক্লাসের মধ্যে কোনো কনস্ট্রাক্টর ডিফাইন করা নেই, তখন সেই কেসে কি হবে?
कांस्टेंट बोलते
কনস্ট্যান্ট না, মানে ব্যাংক অ্যাকাউন্ট ওবিজে যেটা আছে ওর মধ্যে ওয়ান আর আমার নেমটা দিয়েছে, ঠিক আছে, পাস করেছি, কিন্তু ক্লাসের যে ব্যাংক অ্যাকাউন্ট আছে ওর মধ্যে কোনো কনস্ট্রাক্টর ডিফাইন করা নেই, তখন সেই ক্ষেত্রে কি হবে?
no match if suppose you are not including anything, if you are not included anything, any constructor the user is not including, right? And you are trying to create this object, then what should happen as per that? Anyone can give the answer? Can anyone give the answer of this Aniket's question? If suppose user or is haven't included any constructor and I try creating an object bank account like this, what should happen then? Then what should happen? Try coming up with the logic. Compiler, once you are creating this object, compiler is gonna try and looking for a parameterized constructor inside the class which is not at all present. Compiler is gonna try and look for whether any parameterized constructor is there inside the class or not. If no constructor is there, a default constructor compiler includes. So you can right now create object like object2 without any parameterized utilizing a default constructor. But now no parameterized function calling will be matched. Correct? No parameterized function calling will be matched. So this object cannot be created. According to the constructors you are trying to utilize, that has to be there inside the class. Correct? That has to be there inside the class. Let us try right now with this example. Let's see. So what you are saying, no matching function call, because inside my class there are no parameterized constructor that you have included. Got my point? If suppose you are passing on parameterized ones, parameterized constructor should be present. Is it clear to all of you? Is it clear to all of you? Tell me. Okay, so my point is, can my class has both default constructor as well as parameterized constructor? Should it happen? Yes, it can have, right? Let me say that whenever I'm creating a default constructor, I am gonna say objects account number data point will be equal to 0. And let's say its name will be an empty string. That's how I can initialize the values, right? Okay, this is what I did. Now let's see whether we are able to create the objects or not. Object 1 utilizing the parameterized, object 2 utilizing the default constructor. Can that happen or not? We are gonna say that object 2 object. Let's see. We can have it. So yeah, firstly we said 1 and Aniket object has been given the values account number 1, name to be Aniket, and the next value is next whatever you created, next object, it is having account number 0 with no name, basically an empty string. That's why no result for this. So we can see that multiple constructors can coexist inside the class. What this phenomena is called? Same thing. The name of the function is same, right? The name of the function is same, whatever we have seen, but it is showing multiple formats. One is it is default, that is no parameters. Another time it is showing parameterized version as well. And both of them can be coexisting inside the class. Some object can utilize this, some object can utilize this. Both can be utilized by any of the object creation. What we call this? The overall feature. Same thing showing multiple formats is what we call as polymorphism. Am I correct? Polymorphism. The definition we are able to implement right now. Same thing showing multiple formats is what we call as polymorphism. Am I correct? Now, how have you achieved polymorphism? By with the help of methods. What kind of methods? Constructors, right? When you have same methods, when you have same method showing multiple formats, what we call this as? We call this as method overloading. Method overloading, correct? We call this as method overloading. And what kind of method you have overloaded right now? It's constructor. So basically, this is a special kind of method overloading or kind of a constructor overloading, utilizing which we are achieving polymorphism. Correct? Correct? How can you make constructor to behave differently? Firstly, we can do on the basis of parameters. One can have no parameters, one can have one or multiple parameters, right? That's one's choice. So that's first choice. Okay. Okay, just give me a moment. Let me turn on my charger once, right? Just give me a moment. So yes, my point is right now what? Right now we have seen constructor can coexist if we just maintain their signatures differently. First is having no parameters and second one is having multiple parameters, correct? So if suppose your compiler has to differentiate which function call of the constructor to be matched while creating the object, it's gonna see which one is parameterized, which particular function call is the parameterized one, which one is the default one. It's gonna differentiate on the basis of number of parameters you are having inside the class, right? Inside the different versions of your constructors. What is the overall thing we have seen? Same thing, same function showing multiple formats is polymorphism. How have we achieved this polymorphism feature? Polymorphism can be achieved by just implementing same function in different formats. If you are implementing the same function in different formats such as parameterized and non-parameterized, we call that to be method overloading. The same method has been overloaded in different formats. What kind of method you have overloaded? The constructors have been overloaded. So what do we overall call this? Constructor overloading. Okay. How can you assume the overall thing falls under the umbrella of polymorphism. Polymorphism is the main thing that happens here. Now, how did I achieve this polymorphism? By overloading a method, utilizing a method that is being existing in different formats. So I say I overloaded the methods in different formats. What kind of method I overloaded? I have overloaded constructors, right? I have overloaded constructors. That's it. Got the point right now? You have overloaded constructors. Got the point right now? Everything is under the umbrella of polymorphism, correct? So my point is right now, right? Likewise, we have just declared our what should I say this? Constructors. Can other methods be overloaded as well? What are your thoughts? Can other methods be overloaded as well? Yes, they can be. Let's suppose I am having a void function f inside my class, right? Void function f inside my class, and or you can say void get account number. Void get account number. Let's suppose this is one of my, or let's not do it for get. Let's say void set account number, right? And let us suppose if suppose it is this is one of the function that accepts no parameters, right? It accepts no parameters, so it's gonna do it for you. It's gonna do it for you that once this method is being called, you say this dot account number, whatever the object's account number is, set that to -1. Let's do it. If suppose there is yet another account number, set account number that accepts an integer account number. Let's suppose int account number. So I can say objects account number, assign that to the parameters account number, whatever we have achieved, right? Whatever we have passed on. So there are two separate second set account number that has been passed. And what's going to happen is that here, first one is non-parameterized, second one is parameterized. These are just normal instance methods. So my point is right now, let's try it for object 2. Object 2 dot set account number. Firstly, I'm going to try this. Now you try running the function. You're going to get the account number of object 2 to be -1. Try this. So yeah, right now it's coming out to be -1. And then suppose I try out with a parameterized value. This part, and then I say object 2 dot set account number with 5. Let's suppose the account number for object 2 be 5. Try running it. It's going to give you the result to be 5. So both can coexist. There is no issue at all. Both the methods can coexist. What is the nature? How we can just differentiate the function calls based upon the signature of the function. Which one has been called? Which one function? Which particular set account number function can be called without parameter? What can be called with parameters? Okay. Okay. And this, okay. Based upon that, if some particular set account number parameter with parameter, some calling is there, the match will be made here. If suppose without any parameter, the function will be called, the match of the function will be made here. Clear so far? So your normal methods can also be overloaded. Apart from constructors, your normal methods can be overloaded. Let's suppose you are having any random method. Let me define a random method f here, right? Let's suppose you are having another method f, void f, and it takes two things. One is float a and float b. And it has asked you see out a plus b, value of a plus b. And then what you do is that you have another function f inside the class that is taking double a and double b. And you say that see out a plus b here as well. Right here as well. And I'm going to differentiate. How can you differentiate? You can just try inside float function f. And you can try similar kind of printing here as well inside double function f. Now try calling the function. What as per you? Suppose that utilizing the object 2, whatever I am having, I will be calling this function, let's say. I say object 2 dot f. And right now I am giving 1.0 and 2.53. What particular function should be called as per you? Tell me. Which function will be mapped up? Anyone? Should the function be going to the float? Should the function be going to double? Let me try running. So it is by default taking the nature of double function call, right? Whenever you have some decimal points inside, whenever you're having specifically, by default, whenever you declare any decimal points, they are by default taken to be double. They are default taken to be double, correct? You have to separately typecast that to float, correct? In order to make any double value to a floating point integer, you have to typecast those values. So if suppose 1.0 and 2.53 are by default double for you. Right now, you are having two functions, right? Two f functions you are having. One is accepting float. One is accepting float kind of data. Another is accepting double kind of data. So right now, what should be the measure of difference? Can anyone tell? What should be the measure of difference? How can I differentiate? Right now, both the functions are having equal number of parameters. What should be the measure? How can we differentiate what data basically they are accepting? One is accepting float, another is accepting double. By default, if suppose by default, your integers, your decimal numbers are double, then the match is going to be made to the double function f. Because by default, the decimal numbers are double in nature. How can I typecast that to float? Can anyone tell? How can I typecast that to float? Anyone? You can just say float Try typecasting, write float before 1.0, write float before 2.53. Typecast them both. Then see what the result that is coming up. So inside floatf, right now the function match is going to be happening for the float, correct? You have typecasted, you have changed the kind of data to float. Initially it was double, now I typecasted them to be float. And right now, since the data has turned out to be float kind, right now the function is gonna get matched to the particular overloaded function f that is accepting float kind of data, okay? Is there any doubt? ये क्वेश्चन कोई भी पूछ सकता है, ठीक है, कि बाय डिफॉल्ट अगर फ्लोट और डबल है आपके क्लास के अंदर, तो कौन से वाले में कौन सा फंक्शन कॉल पे अगर आप नॉर्मली डेसिमल नंबर्स को दे दो तो फंक्शन मैच होगा, पूछता है ये क्वेश्चन, ध्यान रखना, ठीक है, ध्यान रखना. Now my point is suppose that you are saying I am keeping one of the number to be double, one of the number to be float. कौन से वाले में फंक्शन कॉल जाएगी बोलो? Let me try running. कौन से वाले में नंबर जाएगी बोलो? So it's not able to call any particular function. Why? It's not able to call for any particular overloaded version of fy. Error आ रहा है, क्यों आ रहा है? Have I defined any particular function f that accepts first one to be double and that accepts the second one to be float? Have I defined that? Have I at all defined such kind of functions? No at all, right? So corresponding to this, the compiler is going to look for any function f, does it reside inside the function that accepts first one to be double and accepts second parameter to be float? Nothing as such is there. So no particular function call can be matched up. So that's why you get an error. Clear to all of you? Clear to all of you what is polymorphism? How can I achieve that? By utilizing method overloading. How can I overload constructors? Utilizing by different signatures of the methods. How can you differentiate the signatures? By making different number of parameters or same number of parameters of different data type. Clear to all of you? इतना clear है सबको? पहले वो बोलिए. इतना clear है सबको तो वो बोलो. Please tell me. Should I repeat any point? Should I repeat any point? Okay, what other kind of polymorphism exists inside C++ or any, let's talk about C++ only. What other kind of polymorphism exists? Can anyone tell? Okay, I say number 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. So plus is showing the addition behavior for numbers. Now for strings A, B, C plus D, E, F, it's equal to that of what? A, B, C, D, E, F. What your plus is doing for strings? Can anyone tell me? What does your plus is doing for strings? They are concatenating. Can I say here an operator has shown two different forms? Same is the operator showing multiple formats for different data types. Can I say that? Can I say that or can't I say that? So what we call such kind of behavior is operator overloading. Polymorphism can be achieved by two things, two methods. One is what? Method overloading, another is what? Operator overloading. An example of operator overloading is the plus operator that we have gone so far. We have seen. What we did here is I just said plus, it adds two numbers as well as it concatenates two strings A, B, C, D, E, F. Both have separate behaviors. Same is the operator showing multiple forms. So what we say, an operator is being overloaded to achieve polymorphism. Got the point, all of you till here? Please tell me. Got the point or not? Two things, utilizing two things, operator overloading and method overloading, you can achieve polymorphism. An example of operator overloading I have given to you, correct? And tomorrow I am going to show you how to implement operator overloading. Correct. Let's keep it till here for today. I'm gonna take two things tomorrow. One is copy constructor, what is it? As well as how to implement operator overloading. हो जाएगा तो बोलो, सही है? Is it clear to all of you? Please tell me. Clear to all of you so far? Please tell me that.